Today's lesson is going to look at planning and marketing within a larger organization. As you'll learn throughout this lecture, planning is an important component of business success, and marketing's function plays a critical role within planning in an organization. Throughout this lecture, you'll finally start to see just how important marketing is to an organization. The business planning process is the series of steps that businesses take to determine how they will achieve their goals. I like to look at business planning as a roadmap, and it's a roadmap to get from point A to point B. Point A tells us where we are now. Point B tells us where we want to be in the future, i.e. our goals. And the plan is the roadmap on how we're going to get there. And just as importantly, if there's a roadblock that gets in our way, how we're going to get around it so we could reach our ultimate goal. So, as you can see, if you wanted to fill in, that I like to think of a plan as a roadmap. If we were taking a trip, we would know where we're starting and we would know where we're ending. If we're going to directions, or if we're finding the directions online and printing them out, the directions are going to tell us step by step how we need to get there. That is how I would define a business plan within the larger organizational concept. As we said, business planning is the process organizations undertake to achieve their objectives. Objectives can be short-term, such as increasing market share, or long-term, entering into a new market. The result of this planning is the creation of a business plan, which is just a written document that textually defines the objectives over a set period of time. Business planning is conducted at the top levels of the organization. These top levels use input gained from marketing as well as from other departments inside the firm. The marketing role in this process is to bring information regarding customers into the mix. Executives take all of this information and help to construct or define the objectives of the business. They then allocate organizational resources to accomplish these objectives through certain organizational actions. So another way you could think of the planning process as the gears within a clock. The clock will not show the correct time if one of these gears or two of these gears has a blockage, say a wrench or a pipe is put in these gears, then they will not turn properly and the clock will show the wrong time. The same thing is true in a business. A business will never achieve their objectives if these three areas do not work in unison. As we said, the planning process normally involves a company's executives. However, the planning process normally occurs within two levels of the organization, and that is strategic and tactical. Strategic planning is long-term in nature and thus normally handled by top management. During the strategic planning process, The executives ask such questions such as what type of business do we want to be in, where are we now, and where do we want to go. Because it deals in the long term, strategic planning looks at the big picture and guides long-term strategy in order to accomplish long-term goals. As an example, if you were to ask the executives of Southwest Airlines what business they're in, they would not answer the airline industry. They would answer the transportation industry. Answering the question in that way enables executives to be able to monitor and analyze their microenvironment more effectively. By looking at their business model in a broader sense, Southwest executives not only can compete versus other airlines on price, they can also compete versus other transportation companies on the time it takes to get from point A to point B. So they may be cheaper than Delta, but more expensive than Greyhound. However, they will get you to your destination faster than Greyhound can. Tactical planning is done to support strategic planning. So strategic planning sets out the long-term goals, asks where we are now, point A, our long-term goals, point B. Tactical planning creates the roadmap and creates the directions. So we could say that tactical planning, using our example from a bit earlier, is really the directions on how we're going to get from point A to point B, or the directions in support of long-term objectives. Tactical planning is normally conducted by members of the functional departments such as marketing, finance, HR, and operations, and seeks to meet the goals that were set by top management during the strategic planning process. Who better than to set the turn-by-turn directions on how to get from point A to point B than the people who are driving the car? And the heads of the functional areas basically drive the car of business. They're the ones making day-to-day decisions. And that is what tactical planning really deals with. Planning at this level includes outlining objectives and determining how to meet those objectives on a day-to-day and on an annual basis. Let's look at another example. If Nike's top managers are seeking additional opportunities for the company, they may see that they have a very low exposure to, say, the golf market, other than just selling golf shoes. A decision would then be made by top management to expand into the golf market and would include product development aimed at apparel, clubs, golf balls, etc. Once the decision is made by top management to determine where they want to be, i.e. point B, tactical level or tactical planning would take over at the functional level to determine the best way to enter each of these market segments as to best meet the objectives set forth by top management. Strategic and tactical planning may deal with different time periods and may be done by different levels of the organization, but they are equally important. You cannot be successful with just one, as evidenced by these two historical quotes. The quote by Sun Tzu from his favorite book, The Art of War, illustrates the importance of having an overlapping plan for your actions, while the proverb explains that acting without a plan is very foolish. Now, As we said, strategic planning determines the overall goals of the business and the steps it will take to achieve them. These steps can be broken down into 4 pieces. They are the establishment of the business mission. In this step, the company determines the purpose of the business and what makes the business different from others. So they determine the business purpose and its competitive characteristics. That results in the creation of a mission statement. The mission statement should be well crafted, but not be too broad as to include everything or too narrow to leave out critical aspects of the business, and should serve as the reason that customers would want to have a relationship with the business. The mission statement is the business's driving force. The second step is to identify a vision. And a business vision is a statement of what the company wishes to become in the future. A vision statement is not written for public viewing, but is aimed at keeping the organization focused on the goal. Microsoft Corporation created a vision statement that read, "A computer on every desk and in every home." Note that the vision does not mention having Microsoft products on these computers. Well, one could now argue that Microsoft's vision statement and even its mission was too narrowly defined. As we well know, in today's day and age, most of our computing outside of spreadsheet, PowerPoint presentations, and Word documents and other areas specific to certain job functions like publishing are not done on a desktop or a laptop. They're done on mobile computing devices such as a tablet or a smartphone. Since Microsoft has ignored these segments or this specific segment for a long period of time, they are not the market leader in mobile operating systems. In fact, they are a very distant third at best. By having a very narrow mission and a vision that does not accomplish or accompany a broader statement where all opportunities are considered, Microsoft is running the very serious risk of lowering its cash flows in the future. The third step that a company undertakes in the strategic planning process is to define its objectives. Objectives are a byproduct of a company's mission and vision and should be in full support of the company's overall strategy. Objectives should follow the acronym SMART. Which means they should be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and bound by time. For example, to create a beachhead in the Asia market by opening at least 25 offices throughout China in the next 18 months. This objective is specific, and measurable by giving quantifiable targets of 25 offices in an 18-month period. It's measurable Because there's quantifiable number of offices and number of months, you could measure progress versus this stated objective. They're relevant to the company's current business model of expanding internationally, and they are potentially achievable if the firm has the resources necessary to enter that specific market. Finally, the fourth step in the strategic planning process is the creation or the development of a product portfolio. A product portfolio is the collection of products and services that are offered by the company. The mission and vision statements can help guide the company in determining which products or services to offer. For example, Walt Disney Company is in the entertainment business. Its product portfolio consists of products that will entertain its customers, either on radio, on television, in movies, or at a set of amusement parks or cruise ships. All of the products within their portfolio are aimed at satisfying or achieving the mission and vision statements that the company sets, primarily when they ask the question, what business are we in? If the answer was anything but entertainment, that would change the products that they develop and offer for sale within their portfolio. Now, most companies, I should say, have multiple products. So most companies have a fairly well-defined product portfolio. In order to assess a company's current portfolio, a process known as a portfolio analysis is used. Now let's take a step back and look at the development of a mission statement for an organization. A mission statement should answer the question, what is the purpose of the organization? Why are we in business? The mission statement should be market oriented and defined in terms of customer needs. If you remember back to last lesson, we said that the customer should be at the center of every marketing strategy. Doing so would allow you to become more successful. The same is true with the mission statement, since the mission statement drives the company, and if a company should be customer driven, then the mission statement should be customer driven as well. As we said earlier, it should not be too broad or too narrow, and should be relevant and current. The table gives an example of 3 very well-run and successful companies in different segments: Charles Schwab, Home Depot, and Disney. You could see if they created a mission statement that is product oriented, then their mission statement would be very narrow as opposed to being market oriented. Now, jumping back ahead to step 4 in the process, or the strategic planning process, let's talk about the creation, or let's talk more in depth, I should say, about the creation of a business portfolio. A company's business portfolio is a collection of businesses normally referred to as strategic business units, or SBUs for short, and products that make up a company. A strategic business unit, for example, may be the automotive business or the automotive group in Honda Inc.'s portfolio. Each one of these columns may be or may refer to a different SBU within the organization, whereas what populates the rows in the table are the products that belong to each strategic business unit. Now, a business portfolio should fit the company's overall strengths and weaknesses. If you think about what Honda is known for, it's not automobiles, because as you can see by the table, they offer many more products than just automobiles alone. Honda's strength is that it creates and manufactures very high-performing and reliable motors. As such, their product portfolio can incorporate any product that needs an internal combustible engine in order to run. By Honda developing that engine and lending its brand identity, something we'll talk about later on, they are saying to customers that we know how to do motors, we know how to do motors well, and that you should have every confidence that the product you're buying is going to fully meet your needs and you will not be disappointed. In this way, Honda is creating products that fit the company's overall strength. Now, we mentioned the process known as a portfolio analysis. A portfolio analysis is just a way of companies analyzing their products, finding out which products are good, which products aren't so good but have potential, and which products are bad. A common way for companies to analyze their portfolio is to employ a BCG Matrix approach. BCG stands for the Boston Consulting Group. They're a consultant firm that came up with this matrix type analysis to look at a company's product portfolio. The BCG looks only at a single company and not at an industry or a group of competitors. When looking at a single company, it is possible that a company will have products that fall into each one of these four categories. But that's not always the case. Now, before we move any further and discuss these four categories, let's just define what a matrix is. A matrix is just a four-quadrant box or four-quadrant analysis that's based off of an X and Y axis. The Y-axis here, and if you wanted to look at this a little more, you could extend the X-axis out to the left and the Y-axis down a little bit farther. Would look more like a common graph that you see from math class. But for this instance, we only need to look at the right-hand side. And the Y-axis, or the vertical axis, will determine, will determine the market growth potential for specific products. So, what is the potential for growth in each product? If you only have a 10% market share now, what is the potential for that market share to grow? The x-axis, or horizontal axis, in a BCG matrix looks at the current market share. Where are we now, and what are the possibilities of getting better in the future? Now, if you look on the vertical axis, when you move upwards along the vertical axis, you're looking at high market growth, and when you're moving to the left on the horizontal axis, you're looking at high potential growth versus low potential growth. So let's now take a look at each individual quadrant. Stars are products that have high market growth potential and have a current high market share. These products not only represent the company well now, but they will represent the company in the future. Stars generate large cash flows for the organizations, which allow the company to fund future growth, i.e., it funds future research and development that creates new products and also fuels the marketing efforts for potential products such as question marks to move into different categories. Once stars become more mature in their product life cycle, they typically tend to move and become cash cows. Cash cows, while having low potential growth, have very high current market share relative to its competitors. As we said, these markets are usually more mature and often generate higher profits than stars, and this profit is also used to fund potential growth. Question marks could also be considered problem children or a problem child. Products that fall into this category have very low market share relative to their competitors, but operate in markets that have very high growth rates. While there is great potential in the market, the company has not been able to realize their anticipated level of sales volume. Because of this, companies are not sure what the future holds for these products. They could become stars, or they could move and become dogs. Products that are considered dogs have low market share and relatively low expectations for future market growth. So they have very limited potential. If a product is a dog, a company needs to consider another strategic decision of whether they should divest themselves of the product, meaning should they stop making it, should they sell it off, or some other combination, as to not have that loss on the company's books any longer. When companies are assessing the performance or the effectiveness of the strategic and tactical areas of their plan, they should be careful to not solely rely on financial metrics such as profit and loss alone. Since strategic plans are investments in the company and are long-term in nature, their true value may not be able to be determined in the short term. To account for this, other assessment tools have been created. The balanced scorecard is one of these measures that is in use today by many organizations. The balanced scorecard was developed by Robert Kaplan and David Norton to serve as a management system to relate a business's vision and mission to individual business activities. The scorecard considers a business from 4 different perspectives. The first is from the customer's perspective, and that asks the question, how do customers view the business? Do we have a strong brand? Do we have a very broad portfolio? And can customers conveniently access our products? The second perspective is from an internal perspective. When looking at from the internal perspective, we look to see how efficient we are. So the streamlined process really is how efficient we are at carrying out our goals. We also look at the varying quality across the portfolio, which refers to our QA, or quality assurance. How many defects do we have? How well do our products work? How efficient are we in creating our products? The third perspective is from one of an innovation and learning perspective. And in this instance, companies are looking to see if they can continue to grow and generate value. Is the business structured in such a way in which it can easily grow? Or will growth be hampered by a very top-heavy or hierarchical organizational chain? The fourth and final perspective is from a financial perspective. And not only are they looking at profits, but they're looking at a solid balance sheet. are our assets or what we own greater than what we owe? Do we have a strong core business? Is our strong core business generating enough cash flow so that we could fund our other growth areas of the business? All of these areas are used to assess the business as opposed to just financial. Because in using just the financial perspective, a company would be more prone to jettisoning or abandoning their strategic planning processes because they're only looking at short-term results as opposed to long-term potential, which is captured by these other three different perspectives within a balanced scorecard. When setting objectives, firms have to make sure that they allocate the proper resources to them so that they can be successful. Marketing planning includes these activities devoted to accomplishing marketing objectives. Marketing planning is conducted to support the organization's strategic planning efforts. This level of planning is conducted at the functional level, i.e., in the marketing department or within the product team. There are four main components of marketing planning. The first is the creation of marketing objectives. These are the goals that the marketing functions wish to accomplish to support the strategic business plan. These objectives will vary based on specific situations and include building awareness for a new product and increasing sales or market share for existing products. Marketing objectives should also have the SMART elements mentioned previously. The second component is the marketing audit. A marketing audit is a comprehensive review and assessment of the current business environment, including both internal and external aspects. Marketers use various tools in conducting the marketing audit. This includes a SWOT analysis, which is an acronym that stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The SWOT analysis looks at the external and internal environments of the business, and the Porter's 5 forces model, but only for the external microeconomic market or micro market. Once the environment is fully understood, the process of developing strategies are then implemented. The third component is the marketing strategy. A marketing strategy is how a business plans to achieve the objectives set in their marketing objectives. Two critical aspects of strategy are determining the target market and developing the appropriate marketing mix. We will discuss this a little further in just a few minutes. The marketing mix, or the marketing strategy, or marketing planning, I should say, also includes the allocation of resources and monitoring of those resources. In this step, the firm determines what resources will be necessary to achieve the objectives outlined earlier. If the resources exceed available funds, or they do not fit in with the company's overall strategic planning, then adjustments are made to the objectives. Once resources are allocated and the plan is implemented, marketing managers will monitor and evaluate the results. Changes can and usually are made during the time period of the plan to ensure that the company or marketing's role in the process helps the company stay on its roadmap to get to point B. Now, the next two slides are going to look at two specific areas related to the four components of marketing planning, and those are of the SWOT analysis and then looking at the marketing strategy as created around a target market. A SWOT analysis, as we said, stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. When a company looks at its strengths, or what it does well, and its weaknesses, what it can be better at, they are doing an internal analysis. If you remember back to our last lecture, we said that we could look at the firm's environment as a three-ring diagram. Within that diagram, we had an internal core, which the business could control. And that internal included the departments of the firm, its employees, and its policies and procedures. Then the next two rings comprised its external environment. And that external environment was made up of the micro environment, which was that inner ring, and then the macro environment, which was the outer ring. Internal, or looking at your strengths and weaknesses, is an internal analysis. Looking at your market opportunities and the threats from your market and your competitors, these look at your external environments, both your macro and your micro. Whereas the Porter's Five Forces model only looks at the participants within your micro external environment. These opportunities and threats are external elements, and they stem from environmental issues. The number of competitors, the threat of new entrants, the competitive rivalry within the industry, the bargaining power of suppliers, all those questions that we ask in Porter's Five Forces are indications of threats and weaknesses. The current economic climate, the political structure, the regulatory environment, these are all opportunities and threats at the macro external environment. Now, we mentioned in a previous lecture and earlier in this lecture that in order for a company to be successful, their main goal should be aimed at satisfying their customers. They should be customer-centric. That is a basic marketing strategy. In order to be successful in this endeavor or this goal, marketing must create strategies that are geared towards its target market. The first step in being successful in your marketing planning or your marketing strategies is to first identify your target market. A target market is a group of consumers that a business has determined are the most appropriate and viable to seek. By understanding the needs and wants of all consumers, conducted in part during the market audit, the firm can find those consumers who will most likely benefit the most from the products the company produces. They can also find an attractive group of consumers whose needs are not being currently met by the existing portfolio. In order to be successful, a target market must be at the center of every marketing strategy. This is why this diagram, which puts together 5 pieces of the puzzle, has the target market as the central piece. Because all of the other marketing elements or the marketing mix of product, place, price, and promotion are going to revolve around who the company determines is their target market. And as you can see, this target market piece encroaches on all the other four pieces. That is because it is an essential piece of tying together the marketing mix. Each one of these four elements of the marketing mix are going to have their own unique strategy that we will discuss later on in the course. But each of these individual elements must be able to be tied together, meaning that the individual strategy for product must align or fit in some way with the pricing strategy, the promotion strategy, and the distribution strategy. Because taken together, the marketing mix, or the 4 Ps, create a unique offering for the target market. If any one of these individual strategies differs from the other 4, then the company will not be successful in reaching its target market. For example, if Rolex comes out with a new high-end watch, they're going to price that watch accordingly, maybe $15,000. By seeing a price tag of $15,000 and the Rolex name, consumers create some sort of idea about the quality of that watch. This watch may be promoted in high-end magazines, which are normally read by a target market of high net worth consumers, people who have a liking or an affinity for Rolex watches and both can afford the price of the Rolex watch. They will purchase this product because of the exclusivity involved with it and what it says about them or their level of success in the business world. However, if that product is distributed at, say, Macy's or Watch Express, this distribution strategy would be incongruent or not fitting with the other 3 elements. In this case, because it is widely distributed and not exclusively distributed, people will not pay the $15,000 price for a watch that they consider a convenience or a shopping product. The people that are reading the promotional pieces in these high-end magazines are probably not shopping in these distribution outlets, so they're not going to know the product is available. Those that see the product are not going to pay $15,000 for it. And as such, Rolex, with its relationship with these stores, may lose some of their exclusivity by having a more widespread distribution. Now, much like the strengths and weaknesses are internal and opportunities and threats are external, we could break up the 4 elements of the marketing mix between 2 elements that are strategic and 2 elements which are tactical in nature. The 2 strategic elements of the marketing mix, or longer term, are product and place. And that is because the product development process is usually very long and drawn out. And in order to launch your product and to give it enough time to gain traction with the market and become successful, takes a long period of time. Since strategic planning is long-term in nature, product strategies are long-term in nature. Same thing with distribution or place. And that's because companies usually enter into distribution contracts with companies. A company is not going to take on a product if they're only going to have a short-term contract, which means that the other 2 elements of the marketing mix, advertising and price, are tactical. And being tactical elements, they can be changed using this term delta or triangle for change very quickly Firms could change their price as fast as they could update their price sheets or price lists. And using pricing on the internet is much faster than it was in years past. Or firms could change price quickly through issuing coupons. They could also change their advertising fairly quickly. Within a 1 to 2 month period, a firm could assess its advertising strategies and determine whether they're successful or not. If they're not, they could change them. Because they could do both of these in short term, they are considered tactical elements of the marketing mix. This concludes the lesson on planning in an organization. I hope that you found it useful and you understand the role that marketing plays in both the long and short-term vision of an organization.